thank y'all so much for jumping in. Excited to have Nick from Total CSR on with us today. I know some of y'all joined from his email list, and then some of you joined from our email list. The main goal with this is really we're trying to do some more webinars to bring in different voices and also provide some additional resources to where if you are on our email list, that we're not just emailing you to email you, that we're bringing value. And so when I decided to start working to get some of these webinars set up, Nick was definitely one of the first ones that I thought about. And I think the kind of the connection between Total CSR, what we're doing at RiskAdvisor, but really what both of those are connected to really help each other out. So, but yeah, so we're excited to talk a little bit about training and intake, trying our best not to make it as boring as it sounds. Then again, y'all signed up to hang out with us, so maybe training and intake is something that y'all get a lot of enjoyment out of. But Nick, if you want to go ahead and hop into that next slide. So we're going to bounce back and forth, but really just kind of going over, always like to kind of set the expectation of what spending time with us will look like. But we're going to kind of walk through a couple different things on what intake what intake looks like in agencies and why it normally fails based on a lot of the agencies that we talk to, based on the fact that there's not a lot of structure or training around it. And then also kind of accompanying that on why the training around intake fails, because what Nick and I have been kind of thinking through and talking through is that we're really training on the wrong things when it comes to intake, and doing it the right way and thinking through it the right way is actually much easier to solve than it's made out to be. And as a little bit of background, Nick has spent some time, I'm going to miss a couple of these, but I first met Nick when he was working at Better Agency. He spent some time with the Canopy Connect team, and now he is working with Total CSR. My background, if you don't know, is the RiskAdvisor product was built inside of my agency. I built it for myself as a producer and saw my personal journey as a producer really take a huge leap after what RiskAdvisor gave me. But then the really cool thing was, and why I kind of decided to start taking it to other agencies, is what I saw in my own personal book of business. I saw with the sales team that I was leading as one of the partners at the agency. I saw a benefit just the same in their book of business. So we've been around insurance. I joke, if you've ever been on a demo with me, we've got the tagline, by agents for agents. It's really overplayed at this point. I see Nick laughing about it. It's really overplayed, but it's true. That's where a lot of my background comes from. So Nick, I'll kind of hand it off to you. We didn't build this into the slides, but why don't you clean up on your background, since I know I didn't get all your stops and all your experience, and then we can kind of go in from there.
Yeah. So my background actually goes back to 2002 when I left the Air Force. My first job at the Air Force was actually selling Aflac. So I'm not just a marketer and a salesperson. I actually was a licensed insurance agent and sold insurance products. Not just Aflac. I sold for a couple other companies. But fast forward to 10 years ago, I was looking for a job and leaving the agriculture industry, and Rocket Referrals was looking for a sales coordinator, and I joined that company. Worked there for about 5 years. Ended up going to work for Andy over at CoverDesk for a year, and then went to Better Agency from there. And in the meantime, I spent most of my time in sales and learned marketing as a byproduct of sales, and just that's why I've kind of focused on how I do marketing the way I do. But I've known the guys at Total CSR since they launched, and came to the company. I was like, this is a cool product that agents need in their lives. So that's kind of how I approach companies to work for.
Yeah, I'm thinking back now about it. I completely forgot about CoverDesk, but that's where we first met. And I think it is actually at the Better Agency first conference, because I think you were still with CoverDesk at that point.
Yep.
Maybe I'm making that up. Who knows? But no, that's funny. We chat every single day, it seems like, and figure that out on this webinar. But so I know you have a couple things you want to share on these next couple slides, so I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. So This is probably one of the scariest moments a lot of agencies will face is they have a you've got that one producer, you have that one CSR. And it's not necessarily what if they left, but what if they're overworked or their pipeline is full or they have focus other also, or they want to take a vacation. What happens at your agency with your quote intake and your data intake to to the entire pipeline? That's one of the scariest conversations we have at Total CSR and is this person the tribal knowledge holder in the agency? And that's one of the scariest things you can have because of those things. I like to tell everybody you should have a hit by the bus plan for every step of your plan, every step of your agency, how it works. And so, that's what a lot of agencies end up coming to Total CSR for is do we have all this institutional knowledge in one or two people's brains? And that includes quote intake and data intake to get you through the entire process. That doesn't matter if it's personal or commercial lines. I think it's even worse in commercial lines because those underwriters in the commercial aspect, they have all the knowledge of what an underwriter really wants for that risk, and that can be dangerous. So that's one of the
Yeah,
things that we focus on trying to solve for.
yeah. One of the things that just kind of stood out was I think back to some of my stops along the way where this was more so in the captive world, but where several, like one or two stops, the first 2 to 4 weeks is, hey, go shadow this person who's doing what you're doing that you need to learn from them. And the thought that kind of creeped up in my mind when you were talking just then was, okay, well, most of the time, especially when we're talking about, say, new business, most of the time we're hiring because our new business team is either no longer there because they took another job. So the person to shadow is no longer there, or we're hiring because they are so busy and overworked that now we're also adding on top of that, hey, take care of this person who is coming in to write new business alongside you, make sure to train them up, and you're hoping that their success has come from a process that is your agency's process and maybe not just this producer who has done things a certain way, but the production's too good to actually dig into the details and see if they're doing it the way that you want them to do it. So just thought that was something worth sharing based off what you just said.
Yep. And I've always, as a former sales manager, I've always, how can we replicate what every person does if nobody does it the same way?
Love
And
that.
you can't grow a business if you can't repeat the work that your best people would do. And let's kind of talk about how intake works at most agencies. Most agencies, they'll come in, it's either phone call, email, text message if you're lucky, somebody walks in the office. However you start your quote intake process, it runs through one person, the start of it. And that's can be a problem. Everybody in the agency should be able to start intake. I know not everybody wants to, but everybody needs to know how it works. So you got that producer that knows what underwriting wants, especially on commercial. Not always do you have to deal with underwriting in personal lines, but that producer who knows what underwriting wants. The veteran CSR who's the rock star that's the glue of the agency, right? That's the one who's going in and fixing all the submissions before they're coming in, reviewing all the accord forms, doing all that stuff. And then you got that one person who asks everybody every question because they don't retain any of their information, the things that they know. And then when something gets weird, they go to the rock star that goes, hey, I don't know what this is, and how do I fix it?
Yeah, I think the especially when you start thinking about this remote world that we're in post COVID, of when you talk about going to ask the team, that used to be, hey, literally like what we were talking about earlier, hey, pull up a chair next to my desk, listen to me on the call, watch how I do things, all those things. And post COVID, like I haven't worked in an office outside of my house in 7 years, and we're hiring more and more people that's the expectation. And I think one of the things that I think back to when I was starting to dabble a little bit in commercial And why my agency signed up for Total CSR was the person with the commercial knowledge that was brilliant at commercial would answer any question I had was in another was working 2 hours away. And so like the first couple weeks where I or the first week where I was starting to do that, I was there, I was listening, things like that. But then it turned into a phone call every single time. And we all know how busy we are. So having a structured training process is just as valuable as having a structured intake process that follows what our agency expects, not necessarily allowing each producer to just do things 100% their own way. We don't want to take away their personality. Instead, what we want to do is give them the margins to have that personality because the rest of it is good to go because we have given them that structure. But yeah, the hidden dependency, it kind of goes along the lines like most of the time we hire good people. One of the things that in our agency we started doing really post COVID was we stopped hiring insurance experience. We focused on hiring the right person with the right personality, and we would teach them the rest of it. Actually, kind of going back to this is one of the producers that I had asked for a quote a long time ago when I first launched RiskAdvisor, but we hired this guy. He had every single relationship. This guy has BOR'd more personal lines business than I've ever seen. I think in his first year alone, he BOR'd $500,000 of premium in his first year just because of the connections that he had. And what he told me was, "Hey, I had all the relationships, but no insurance experience," which we knew that going in, hired him. I was scared to death about which questions to ask, which takes away that personality that we hire them for. If they don't feel comfortable in which questions to ask, they're not going to be able to have those margins to fill it in with the confidence of building rapport. And he's like, RiskAdvisor gave me a simple process that allowed me to follow the same process that everybody in the agency was following. And that fear went away because I just literally followed through the process. But kind of getting back to this, the hidden dependency is not based off of what's in their head. We hire good people more times than not. It's getting them to a place that gets them to know what to do and what to expect and what their role is going to need on a day-to-day basis, which is also why in our industry we've accepted the status quo for years, for decades, that when you hire a new producer, you're not only expecting a 3 to 6 month startup period, but then you're not expecting profitability from that producer in the first 1 to 2 years because of how long it takes to get someone up and going. And a lot of times that's based off of people with insurance experience.
So this is something we've seen quite a bit. When that rockstar isn't available, submissions go out either wrong, you're chasing information, or somebody's having to rekey data in, which is all of these things are the things that I think, and one of the reasons I really like what RiskAdvisor does is it eliminates the need to do all that. It offers the option, the way for the agency to get all the information they need up front, the right time, all the time, and consistency. Now, we know there's not, and when agencies hire, like David's talking about, when they hire based on personality versus the insurance knowledge and insurance, and nowadays anymore, you can kind of bluff your way through with knowledge. There's a lot of, I don't know if you guys realize this, there's AI tools which you can embed and give it into your meeting link. It doesn't show up and it will tell you the answers to the questions. So that's just going out there. I've seen it, and we've seen it in the tech industry. So they're definitely, so you don't need better people. You have to have a better process. So starting with having everything structured, having your training structured the same way every time for every person, repeatability, and having a process to where they can do their job easier from the outset with repeatable processes for your intake, you're solving most of the problems. Now, what we do at Total CSR, what we tell people, yes, hire for personality, but then when you run them through the Total CSR assessment tools, you're going to assess where they are in that coverage knowledge, and then be able to assign them training based on those gaps of how they answered those coverage knowledge questions. And then also be able to see, oh, hey, this person really struggles with this line. This person doesn't understand that we need to reinforce that education with them. But and training alone doesn't fix all of that. Everybody learns different. Everybody has a different work ethic. And that's one of the other problems that I think Jordan and Justin were trying to solve for, was everybody teaches different. So if you have 3 producers teaching a CSR, and everybody teaches how they do that job. There's a funny meme, and I was going to add it to the slide.
To interrupt you for a second, I think what most people understand that actually happens is the CSR trains the producer, and I was the sales team leader. So I will fully recognize that the training comes from the CSR. And so what ends up happening on that one is the CSR trains the producer on the way that they like things specifically. It may not be the exact process. It's going to be closer to the process than if the producer did it. But they're going to train, each one's going to train a little bit differently on, hey, this is what I want in the file, or this is the way I want things done. But just wanted to interject there because definitely a situation where the CSR is responsible for the training, not the producer.
Yeah, there's a meme. I meant to add it, but I forgot about it. But it's basically, here's the way we're told to do the job, and here's the way I do the job. And that's like, I've been working in corporate America most of my adult life. That's the reality. So especially with companies who don't have dedicated learning and development, they don't have dedicated HR with training assets. That's the problem we see. But you can get around it. You can improve and make people's lives better with things like RiskAdvisor. So I'll let you kind of take that over from here.
Yeah, and I kind of got ahead of myself a little bit on talking about the producer that we brought in, and the way that we started hiring was more so on the personality. I think this was about 5 years ago that we brought a couple of these producers in, where we started. Our agency was based out of the College of Charleston, or near the College of Charleston. So we just started hiring people based that were graduating from hospitality, because if they're graduating with and they had learned all about being hospitable, that's going to be pretty helpful in the insurance industry, especially in a market like coastal insurance, where rates are jumping up and things are difficult. And I think to kind of not repeat myself, but also to kind of rehash, I think the number one reason that we wanted to, looking outside of RiskAdvisor for a moment, but thinking back to my agency, the number one reason we wanted to invest in training was because we wanted to take the thinking out of it. And obviously there's always going to be more to learn when it comes to insurance. Part of the reason why I went after Total CSR, I started getting my CIC. Why even though I'm not writing policies anymore, I want to go get my CPRM, is because the ones in the industry, I think it's a common theme. The more you focus on training and making yourself better, the easier the job gets. It's never going to be an easy job. Not trying to say that, but it is going to, the day-to-day gets easier the more training, knowledge, processes that you're able to follow. And really comes down to exactly what he has right there, is the opposite of that. And when you have good training, when you have set processes, training is not guesswork. It turns it into a structured, scalable process where you're able to take your agency from where the status quo of growing 2 to 3% per year to being able to make leaps and bounds from 10 to 20% because of scalability starts coming into play. So what trainable intake looks like is within RiskAdvisor. One of the things that we've done over the years is what we call conversational logic. I've already harped really heavily when it comes to allowing the person's rapport and allowing the person's personality to bleed through. But trainable intake is, hey, it's not, hey, here's a fillable PDF, or here's 50 intake sheets, put them on your desk so that way you're ready for the next phone call. That trains you through, hey, there's a bunch of questions on here. Well, okay, this person tells me it's a secondary seasonal. Okay, do I flip over? Do I get this? Do I get this other supplemental sheet, or do I forget the questions? And I just told this person, like, hey, I'm going to take care of you. I'm your trusted advisor. And you give them a call back 5 minutes later after your rater says, hey, you forgot to ask 15 questions. Trainable intake is repeatable intake, where you go in, you set things up. Hey, this is the way I want to label this question. This is the way I want my team asking this question. Here's some context around the question, but it's built into how you're doing your intake. There is no, hey, first 90 days, you got to do it this way. And then after the 90 days, you do it however you want to. It's consistent. You're setting clear, not just requirements, but expectations. New business intake is not just about new business. New business intake sets your agency up for renewal and remarketing. So that way you get to, instead of the normal 2 to 3 renewals before true profitability comes into a personal lines account, you're able to get into profitability maybe year 1, at most year 2. So that those clear requirements of your producer, your intake team, to set your renewal and remarketing team up is vitally important. The structure. We hear every single day about AI. We hear every single day about data and how, hey, 5, 10, 15 years from now, the data is going to be more valuable than the renewals. Well, that's only true if you have structured data inside of your agency. If you have a bunch of file cabinets, or you're one step next to that and you've scanned your handwritten notes into your AMS, and it's, you know, how anytime you use like a scanner and it names it something completely random, then it's impossible to find. So that's step 2. Step 3 is you got a fillable PDF where it's handwritten. Maybe you label it correctly, but then from there, it's taking the next step after that to where you've got structured data that can be used, whether it's for remarketing, whether it's for servicing, whether it's for whatever next steps you need inside of your agency. But the most important thing is, once you make it to where trainable intake, which is what I've already said is your consistent intake, is where anyone can learn it, that's where you're able to start making hires, and you're able to hand them off, allow them to be comfortable on the phone, get the data that they need to get, and then you can kind of go through like total CSR on how to make sure you're reviewing the proper coverages, the endorsements, but you have everything that you need to go market that account with the rater, with the carrier sites, with underwriters, whatever it needs. So that way you're not having to go back and frustrate the prospect and ask them additional information. Now, when you do all that stuff together, you create that consistent, repeatable, structured process. Now it just, training becomes easy on one of the most difficult parts of training is the beginning. Now it becomes easy, and now it actually works long term.
I kind of want to, something I've noticed a lot is, especially with new hires, they don't understand why we ask the information. So getting them through some base training and understand, because if they're new to insurance, and I see it all the time, my 23-year-old daughter, she has no idea if she went to go work in an insurance agency right now, she'd be lost, because this is the first year she's actually bought her own insurance. Like, I've dealt with it her whole life. And so these new hires, if they also need to understand why we ask these questions. So it's something to think about when you're going through and building out your RiskAdvisor account, or you're going through and starting to hire. Okay, we have to explain why we're asked these questions. So this is the kind of the outcome is when you get that trainable intake process in, and you put your team through structured training and everything else, you're going to understand, you're going to see your submissions improve. You're going to see your producers wasting less time. You're going to see that valuable rockstar CSR, less of their time be hung up on questions that the people should have known or understood. They stop having to make all those fixes on a submissions and accord forms. And then that new hire becomes profitable and productive much sooner. We see agency. A friend of mine's agency just signed up. His son is going through training, and he is gone 30 days, and he is ready to start working the desk. Versus, he said the last new hire he made, it took them 9 months before he was comfortable letting him, because he was able to go into his total CSR account and see, okay, he did understand this subject. He didn't just click through the buttons. Like, do you guys remember ever done any cybersecurity training? You literally, Vanta's cybersecurity training is like the gold standard, right? you turn on a video, move it to another window, and you go back to your job while that other thing runs. That's not how training is supposed to be. But so, and that's it. Like, then everything, you stop depending on the heroic activities of your best employees, and you can start building up and growing your team through effective training. Anybody have any questions, comments?
As I mentioned up front, I am just double checking to make sure that nothing's coming through on the chat. We'll keep that open for a minute, but not what we're going to do is we're going to send out the recording of this. I'm going to put Nick on the spot. He doesn't know this, but he's going to, in that email, what we're going to do is include some quick hitters, maybe a free training resource on his end. I'll do the same thing on the RiskAdvisor side. But really what this comes down to is we want, whether it's the 30 minutes that we were on this or the email that we sent over to you with the recording and those things that come along with it, that there was value for you and your team. So if no questions pop up right now, no worries. When we shoot this out, feel free to respond back with any questions that pop up then. But Nick and I will hang out for a few more minutes, but we're wrapped up on our end. So feel free to get to your lunch or your afternoon meeting. But if you have any questions, you can definitely hang out with us here.
Thank you. I have a question. Can you hear me by chance?
Yeah, we got that.
Okay, awesome. So actually, we have a demo scheduled here Thursday. That the president of the company I work for, he's already interested so far. So I'll just do kind of like a pre, basically getting myself knowledgeable on what you guys are offering. And so this intake piece is, I'm assuming, just one piece to the level of service you could provide and how you guys can integrate with our CRMs and essentially just flow from the intake process into our, like, for example, Hawksoft is what we use.
Yep. Yeah, so intake's just a small piece of it. I think it's the most important of creating that structure from the get-go. But along with that, we've got what we call underwriting AI that keeps the back and forth that your team probably has with, hey, I've got this hairy risk that which carriers do I need to go to? So we'll actually, as part of your intake, we'll show you a green, yellow, red light that's going to give you the green equals eligible, yellow equals concerned, maybe needs an inspection or a water backup limitation or water limitation. And then obviously red's going to be ineligible. But then along with that, we've got close to 10 integrations now to where you can push this data to different CRMs, AMSs, raters. So that way you get the clean data set, the structure on the front end that's not going to create any duplicate effort on that. And then we save the double entry by pushing that to the systems that you're using. So that way you get that structured data into those other platforms for easy handoff.
Okay, so this could essentially work too for renewals that are already active in our system that are looking to be remarketed, or does it go to that?
Yeah, we can help with importing those into the platform, but then we do have a built-in renewal flow. So let's say you put in a new business this year, it's going to be there ready for a one-click renewal. My account manager would send me a message every once in a while saying, hey, it took me 30 seconds to get that back over to our virtual assistant. And then it's going to rerun through the eligibility guidelines to give you that green, yellow, red light. So that way a producer, this is something, Nick, that you and we should have brought up more. I can't tell you how many times where the producer knew where to go because it's on the sales side. They knew every trick of every market. So they put it with a specific carrier. And then when it comes time for renewal, CSR doesn't have the notes because either they weren't documented or there wasn't an easy way to look them up. And they're like, oh, this one will be a great fit for carrier Z, and I'm going to save them 20%, not look like a hero. And then you find out after the fact that what wasn't documented was the reason why they went with carrier A, because it wasn't eligible for Z. So that stuff will come into play there as well.
Yeah, we see that break down a lot here right now. There's like this whole sales versus service department argument that's been just a horrible, like, there's always this finger pointing of like, well, sales doesn't enter the information that we need. So then we, the renewal side, are taking double the time to be able to make sure we have our information either for one present to
Yep.
know what then to do with the renewal.
Yeah, no,
and
that
placement, right?
spot on, and definitely it's made for whatever you put in now will be available down the road, but there's other ways around that to make it valuable for what you already have on the books as well.
Okay, awesome. Looking forward to the demo. I'll see you
Yeah.
guys again on Thursday.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. I
Yeah.
promise that I did not prompt her with a gift card or anything to give me a good question.
No,
So.
no, my boss told me, hey, get in that meeting, get familiar, and I'm
Love it.
just AI and all these tools right now are the way to go. I see. We're just trying to save time for these agents, and like you said, it's hard to hire now. And yeah, we're dwindling down to our very last agents who, have the experience, who we can rely on. But yeah, just like you mentioned, and you nailed it. These people are exhausted.
Yeah.
They're burned out. We can't really, push all that on them to rely on them like that. So
100%. Great point. Thank you.